Hi everybody, welcome to the Prince's Trust Diversity and Inclusion webinar. This is the second live talk that we've got coming up in a series of webinars around the subject of D&I. In the next hour, you will learn from our truly amazing panelists on the importance of cultural diversity in the workplace. So a little bit about me. My name is Dagmar Bennett and I work for the innovation team within the Prince's Trust. Over a year ago, because of certain life circumstances, I found myself as an unemployed young person receiving help from the Prince's Trust. Despite having a first in my degree and loads of experience in the freelance creative industries, I found it really difficult to find full-term employment. I attended a Prince's Trust event called Get Hired. It had completely eradicated all of the barriers that I faced as a young person. I was sending away a lot of CVs and not getting anything in return. No job interviews, nothing. I walked away from this Get Hired event from the Prince's Trust with 2 job offers, and to this day my manager has still yet to have seen my CV. So like many others on the day, I was completely recruited on the values that I shared with these companies. I've now successfully been employed for just over a year, and this is my first ever office job. Would you believe it? I'm now leading on the first Prince's Trust webinar. So if you're a young person that's out there and you're listening, please, I know how you feel. I'm going to get a bit emotional on this one, but don't give up. Please reach out to a company. Please reach out to the Prince's Trust. Check out our website. The team are truly and honestly, they're so lush. They're not judgmental and they're really helpful and friendly. So I wanted to start these live talks to make a change to young people's life. From my personal experience, I wanted to make a change for the future generation. If we can create economic justice for the next generation, then we can create a more inclusive and equal workplace. Yes, we need to educate ourselves. Yes, we need to have open conversations. But most of all, as companies, we need to take measurable actions to make some real change in our world of work. So I urge the audience, whether you're a young person, a freelancer or a business, to take some pen and paper and over the next hour write down some super key nuggets of knowledge. I want you to take these talking points to your next meeting and implement those changes in your workplace. So please support me on my journey. Your opportunities really do change young lives like mine. So the Prince's Trust is the largest youth charity in the UK. We support thousands of young people aged 11 to 30 to help them get into employment. The Prince's Trust vision is that every young person should have the chance to succeed, to start something, confidence, courses, and career. ONS data has seen that the number of job vacancies in May has fallen to a record low, hurting young people particularly hard. As fewer available jobs makes it much harder to enter the labour market. So we are hosting this panel discussion to help businesses to understand how young, diverse people can empower their workforce. We are really excited today to host this amazing group of panelists who will discuss why cultural diversity is so important in the workplace. Throughout the next 45 minutes, there's a chat box on the right-hand corner, so please do feel free to pop any questions in there and I'll pick them up later. So I'd like to go on to introduce our panelists. If we can go with Molly first, that'd be great.
Thanks so much, Dags, and again, brilliant. It's so great to hear your story, and it's even more of a privilege to be in your company today as part of this webinar. I work in the marketing team at Facebook, and we have had the privilege of partnering with the Prince's Trust and a number of young people specific marketing agencies over the last year to come up with several different marketing campaigns, which I'll talk to later. But personally, I work in marketing. I've had a fairly squiggly career. I'm incredibly passionate about this area because I think, you know, at school I went to a fairly local comprehensive school and there were not jobs in tech shared with us, or nobody even spoke to us about these jobs. We heard about English, maths and science and where you could go with those things. So I think as now a employee in a large business, we have a huge opportunity and more importantly a role to play in actually showcasing what is the options that are out there for young people. I'm also incredibly a believer of the fact that it's not about what you know now, it's what you've yet to learn. And we don't just learn from those that are older and wiser and more experienced than us. I think we actually gain a huge amount of experience from young people with that great curiosity, energy and enthusiasm. So delighted to be a part of this panel and looking forward to getting stuck into the questions.
Thanks, Molly. If we could go over to Montell next.
Hello, hello, hello. I also want to say I'm very honored to be a part of this panel. My name is Montell, so I work at the National Theatre, and my job title is Corporate Development Administrator. I'm very new to the development sector, and about this talk today, again, I'm honored to help people learn, and because this is going to be a great way to start the conversation and about getting results now. Again, yeah, I'm just very happy to be here. Very, very happy to be here. Yeah.
Thank you everybody for introducing yourself. I know that Amir is having a few tech issues, so I am going to get straight into it with the questions. So, Montell, from a young person's perspective, as an ambitious young person, fairly new to the world of work, what has been your experience of cultural diversity, and why do you think it's so important to the next generation of young people?
So I've had a very interesting experience. I've worked in hospitality, I've worked in retail, and also worked in charity sector. I'm working in the charity sector now. And about this, I feel like retail is the only sector that really truly represented my community. And it's a shame, and it's become normal to me. It's become normal that I go into a different sector and I don't really see people that represent me, you know. And I think this is a very important that for the new young generation, that we do make our offices, not even just offices, our workspace diverse, because I truly believe that we need more role models. And having said that, let me just take my time, sorry about that. We need more role models in the office, and we need people that represent me. And if we don't have anyone that represents me, how can someone that's 16, that's finished going to college or anything, wants to work in the sector, you know? And yeah, I just truly believe that we need more representative in our office. Yeah, thank you. Unmute.
Definitely, we need to have more representatives within the world of work. And Montell, how do you feel that businesses can benefit from cultural diversity?
So with that question, that question has many answers, and I feel like I want to stick with just, you know, companies benefiting just within like some audience, you know. Look at Ben and Jerry's. For the past month, they've been pushing the agenda of Black Lives Matters, and literally their social media page has literally risen for over like 20,000. I remember literally as soon as I saw they do an interview expressing about pushing the agenda, I literally bought 5 tubs of Ben and Jerry's. It was amazing. And what that does, you're bringing in a different audience. And it's very beneficial. You're not losing out on the audience. You're gaining more, if anything, you know. And so but I'll bring it back into the work environment. Why I feel like it's important. It's just important that to make our offices diverse, because everyone. Let me take a breath. I just truly believe that we shouldn't judge people whether on their skin or their race or from the community they're from. We should be picking people just because of their talents, you know. So that's why with that question, I don't really want to talk about office environment. You should just pick someone because of their talents and their skills and what they have to offer. I don't think what I offer compared to what an Asian person offers is any different. It's just all about the skills and what the person has. Yeah. Thank you.
Unmute.
Tech. Molly, I know that you've worked with the Prince's Trust a lot and you're really passionate in Facebook as the head of marketing EMEA. And someone who helps a lot of young people in marketing in the workplace, how do you feel that companies such as Facebook and the companies that are listening can really help unemployed and underrepresented young people get into the world of work?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the key things actually is that it actually starts before the world of work. You know, we need to showcase what is possible. I think to Montell's point, you know, real life role models is crucial. We did some amazing focus groups last year, and a very bright young man said to me, you know, he'd not actually ever left Tooting, but he said, if I can't see it, how do I know I can be it? Like, we've got a real life role models, and the opportunities are so important that we showcase. I mean, personally, you know, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Twitter, the tech industry as a whole, it definitely didn't exist when I was at school. And also, if it did, I would question whether I would have actually had exposure to it with both parents in kind of, you know, frontline public service jobs. So I think it's really important that we showcase that those opportunities are available, but not only as careers, but enablers to careers. I think the strength of our young people is that the entrepreneurial spirit is incredible. You know, Facebook and the tech industry as example doesn't need to be a career in itself, but it could be an enabler to creating your own business. So, you know, at Facebook, we run a program called Boost, and we ran one specifically with the Prince's Trust last year with Boost with Facebook for young entrepreneurs. We had over 150 young entrepreneurs they can do to create a business for themselves, both creating and then so I think, you know, there's a role within the education system for students to see what the world of work can also offer, but also there's a responsibility on us to showcase to the staff, to the teachers, what's on offer, so it becomes part of the narrative. I mentioned Boost with Facebook, but Facebook has a number of programs that focus on young people, you know, the more formalized digital training, but also I don't think you can underestimate the power of employee-led community outreach programs. So we run a program with school-age children around mentoring that again opens up the opportunity and shows what's available. And you know, just showcasing and highlighting that is a really, you cannot underestimate the showcase of opening, you know, up to what's important. And as I say, you know, I was talking, it was not a chap called Noel Williams. He won't mind you mentioning him. You can find him on Instagram. He's a very, very bright, powerful, well, young man. And he's the guy that said to us last year during one of our focus groups, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So I think, you know, we all have a role outside of education to make sure that opportunities to young people are visible, and we are, you know, most importantly as well, we're making them feel accessible. Like, okay, I can see that role, but can I as an individual, do I feel like I can go for that? If I can, you know, how do I apply for it? What do I have to do with my CV? How do I get an interview? So it's about making things accessible, anything from mentorship, you know, office tours, working with young people in terms of the research, gaining your insight from the audience that you're targeting. So if you're targeting young people in a campaign or a marketing activity, speak to young people, engage young people, work with experts that do that day in, day out, you know, ultimately listen to the voice that you're wanting to represent.
Yeah, definitely. Montell, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that. I was just thinking myself about how, you know, companies can be accessible towards young people like ourselves. I don't know how your experience has been of that. Do you feel that companies could do more in that space to, you know, whether it's marketing themselves or whether it's, you know, reaching out to the next generation? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I truly believe that companies should be very transparent when it comes to supporting these kind of causes. And it's just, all it takes is just, you know, going on social media, because a lot of the young people nowadays are on social media and they're showing your support. That's all it takes. We're not asking you to put a huge banner. We're not asking you to go on the big screens. We're asking you to communicate with us and communicate with us where we are. Where we are. That's that might be on Instagram. It might be on this webinar. It might be on Facebook. But we're not asking a lot. We're just asking just to be very obvious that you're here to support us and you're here and you want us to 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 make a change. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like that in the past actually myself. Market yourself towards the next generation, because young people are the future, and we should be listening to them. So Molly, as you are a super passionate advocate. I know you've done a lot of work with us in the Prince's Trust. You launched the Lightwork campaign. You always put young people at the forefront of the creation. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about how companies can utilize talents and their skill sets, especially within the creation and design and marketing sector.
Absolutely. So ultimately, to Montell's point, good marketing should really talk to the audience that you're trying to serve, like be where that audience is and speak their language, address their needs. But ultimately, that's going to start with insight. Insight is 100% more powerful than assumptions. And I think everybody is guilty of making assumptions. Like, you're not going to be and deliver powerful marketing activity unless you get the insight. It needs to be evidence-based. So that's a good place to start. If your target audience is young people, start with young people, gain that insight there, and listen and learn from that audience. And you don't have to be the expert. Be brave to step outside what you would normally do in your comfort zone, but you don't need to be the expert. Listen to those that to those whom are. So the Prince's Trust is a great example, but there's also some brilliant organisations out there. Liberty, we worked with on the Lightwork campaign, Brixton Finishing School, On Road, just to name a few. They're all their raison d'etre and purpose. So I would, that's the first point. And I guess coming back to Lightwork, I'd love to just share a bit about the Lightwork campaign that we created in partnership with the Trust. So the brief started focusing on serious youth violence in London and partnering closely with young people. We quickly found out that actually this wasn't about delivering a message around knife crime, but rather two things that we've touched on already, but real life role models and making those giving them a space and actually putting them out into the public domain. So real life role models being one, and opportunities and connecting to real live opportunities. So, at that point, we could have quite easily used an internal team. We've got a great creative team at Facebook. We could have used them to build the creative campaign. But instead, we partnered with Liberty and we hired 6 young creative talents to build the campaign from start to finish. So it was by young people for young people. And I think the crucial factor here is authenticity. So I would say to the businesses on the line, if you're delivering something, question yourself and challenge, is it authentic, and actually is it contextual to the audience? And we learned a lot, and I would be delighted to share more with anybody on the call. If you want to know more about the process of this, ping me or get in touch on LinkedIn. Delighted to chat to you. But I see it as a really powerful model for the marketing and advertising industry to provide opportunities to young people. It could be work experience, it could be short-term assignments, it could be more of a full-time role. But ultimately, you're gaining insight into our future leaders. Dags, I think you mentioned it, the young people are our future. They are, and they bring so much energy and insight, to give those opportunities now. And one thing that I would just add as a caveat, or not a caveat, but just as a point to note and a learning, is that, it's really important to create the space to work with young people, but give mentorship and guidance, but importantly with enough freedom to actually empower, because you want to learn from this audience, but then also empower them to go on to the next stage of their career. So I guess I would just encourage everybody on the line here to, who are you partnering with? Does your agency and supplier list actually reflect your target audience? Take the time to research and find experts in the field that you're trying to address. In this instance, we're talking about young people. So, be brave. Go find an agency and a partner that actually reflects who you want to work with. And actually, it might be that you do all of your creative in-house. So if it's in-house, make sure that team represents who you're targeting. If it's an agency or a supplier, Liberty, On Road, Brixton Finishing School are all, 3 incredible organisations that you could, just start with to get some of this insight. You're on mute.
Amir, I feel like you're on the line and you've joined us. If you want to say hello.
Hi everyone, I am so sorry I'm late. Technical issues have delayed me, but I'm here and I'm ready to get going. So thank
It
you.
is nothing like a bit of tech issues at a live event. It's, yeah, inevitable. Thank you so much for joining. Amir, I was wondering if you could just introduce yourself a little bit, and yeah, then I can go straight into a question for you.
Yeah, sure. So thank you all for joining this call, and thank you so much for the Princess Trust for allowing me to have a voice and to share some of my insights. For those people who don't know me, my name is Amir Cobell. I am the head of diversity and inclusion here at Burberry. I started diversity and inclusion back when it was called equality and diversity, probably when it was less fashionable and less something that everyone knew about. So it wasn't a career path I deliberately thought to go into. I've done it for about 12 to 13 years now, coming up to 13 years. And I joined because I really wanted to make a difference in equality, justice. I have a master's in human rights. And actually, I worked in all sectors, public, private, and the charity sector. So I kind of have an experience in all of these areas. And I worked in many big corporations such as Vodafone, Diageo, Royal Bank of Scotland, Coty, Adidas, and now here in Burberry. So I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Amir, for that fabulous introduction. So this is obviously, diversity and inclusion is a massive topic, but today we are focusing on the importance of cultural diversity in the workplace. So I was wondering if, Amir, you could just set the scene a little bit for the audience and give us some insight into what cultural diversity in the workplace is and, why it is so important for companies to do.
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for the question, Dagmar. And when I was asked to do this talk, the first thing I did was actually and I wanted to kind of set the foundation around what is cultural diversity. And when I Googled it, I know already, but I thought, how do I position it? And in Google, what it comes up as cultural diversity is the existence of different cultures and ethnicities in society. Interesting enough, like the existence is there. So it's a fact. Diversity is a fact. We are all diverse, we all come from different backgrounds, and it's existing in our societies, in our organizations. So that's the first thing I want to put out there. The second thing I wanted to talk about is actually 10 years ago or so, many organizations, McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, started to think about the benefits of diversity and inclusion. And why are we focusing on D&I in organizations? And I wanted to kind of talk to you about the compelling business case when it comes to diversity. So McKinsey did a research where he said the companies in top quartile for ethnic and cultural diversity on executive teams are 33% more likely to be profitable. 33% more likely to be profitable if you had more cultural diversity in executive teams. Also, studies show that Latinx, Black, and Asian consumers are 80% more likely to interact with a brand after seeing ads they consider to embrace D&I. A Boston consulting group study found that companies with more diverse management teams have 19% higher revenues due to innovation. So there's a correlation between innovation and the number of diverse teams you have in organizations, and it increases by 19%. When we look at engagement, diverse teams have 13% more higher levels of engagement than less diverse teams. So there's again a connection to engagement and diversity. And also, it's been estimated that closing the gender gap would add $28 trillion, that's $28 trillion to the value of the global economy by 2025. That's an increase of 26%. And lastly, I wanted to share with you is employees in the UK are 3 times more likely to leave an organization when they don't believe it is fully committed to D&I. So I've just reeled out some facts based on research that has been done over the last 10 years. And my question is, so why aren't we diverse? There's a clear business case: profitability, retention of talent, higher innovation, which all companies want nowadays. So why aren't we diverse? And often we need to stop being comfortable with being uncomfortable when we talk about the topic around race. We need to be bold in our conversations, and we need to be honest that inequalities exist in societies. Not just exist, but within their structural inequalities, there's systemic inequalities, and also there's daily inequalities that we need to be quite mindful of and understand as an organization in order for us to do something about it. But taking out of the organization context, there's inequalities in healthcare, education, employment. We have seen it over the number of few weeks around some data and facts are flying around. But the Guardian did a research and it said 43% of minority ethnic people are overlooked for work promotion in a way that they felt unfair in the last 5 years. Black people are 3 times more likely to be detained under the Mental Health Act. And as you saw with COVID-19, there's a clear factual base where it disproportionately impacts people of color. In 2018 in London, ethnic minorities earned 21.7% less than the rest of the population. In 2018, Black people had the highest unemployment rate of any other ethnicity at 9%, more than twice the white population at 4%. And last but not least, I want to share this with you. Employees in the UK are 3 times more likely to leave an organization if they don't believe it's fully committed to D&I. And again, going back to that point in actually what we are going to be doing as an organization. So these are the inequalities that exist. And if we need to tackle them, we need to firstly talk about them. We need to educate ourselves what the structural, systemic, and daily inequalities that exist in societies. And I want to leave with a couple of points before I get into another question is you can't be what you can't see. So you can't be what you can't see. So organizations can do 3 things to tackle cultural diversity and having more of that in an organization. The first one is clearly representation. You know, we can have trainings, we can have different programs in place, but if you can't see leaders in senior positions, if you don't have the right representations at all levels, then we're not going to be moving ahead when it comes to diversity in organizations. And what I mean by that is, who are we bringing in the organization? Where are we sourcing our talent from? What kind of partnerships we have as an organization to ensure that we are doing the right things with the right community groups? But that's people bringing people into it. The second thing I would say is the pipeline and development of people. So a lot of people say to me, so great, we're bringing people in, we've done what we needed to do. No, what are we bringing them into? How are we developing them? What are their development needs? What experiences are they facing? That's true inclusion, and that's a real sense of belonging, to make sure that the diverse talent you bring in is brought through up into the ranks. And last but not least, the third point I really want to mention is nothing will change if we can't change people's mindsets, if we cannot educate people. Often, you know, the changes in a revolution or changes in societies or any movement has happened through education and awareness. It's pointing out that everyone's experiences are different, and what you're experiencing may not necessarily be what other people are experiencing, and we see the inequalities that exist. So those 3 things, I think, as an organization, if you start tackling, you're on the way to the right path. And I will leave with one last thought. There is no silver bullet. There is no magic formula to get D&I right. It's a constant and continuous effort that needs to be made, and it needs to be focused on, because as soon as you take your focus off it, it can easily go the opposite way very quickly. So commitment needs to be there from the top, and it needs to be continuous.
Thank you, Amir. Yeah, I was just saying earlier on, you know, the businesses that are out there, I really want you to listen to champions like Amir and take away these points and really take them into action so that we can create some real change within your companies. So thanks for that insight. I don't know, Montell, if you've got any thoughts from a young person's perspective on, you know, leadership and retention of diverse talent and how we can grow talent like yourself within the workplace.
First of all, I was literally just dissecting everything that Amir said, because it was so just on the dot, literally on the point. Literally, there's a quote that I'm going to say. Everyone wants to go to a party, right? But not everyone. You're going to leave the party very early if you don't fit in. And the thing about, you know, developing people like myself and stuff. If you don't want to develop me, then I'm gonna leave. I don't feel wanted. I don't feel like, oh, you know, my manager doesn't like me. You know what? I'm going to another organization where I feel like I'm treated where my manager cares about my development, where my manager really cares about pushing their agenda. You know, it's just want to feel like you fit in, literally. But yeah, he made some amazing points. Literally, he made some amazing points. So I don't really want to go on too much because I want people to dissect literally everything he just said. Sorry.
Yeah, Molly, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on the development of BAME candidates within the workplace and how you really showcase their talents.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's not just retaining. I think there's a point around attracting first. To Montell's point there, like, you've got to get an invitation to the party to get to the party, and you give an invitation to somebody you want. So you've got to make young people feel like they are, invited in and welcome to the organisation. And then in terms of actually, retaining and keeping work interesting, it's about, we kind of spoke about it earlier, but it's about accessibility and seeing, providing a space that is, open for young people to come in and to work and to thrive, to allow them to to learn and to share insight and share their skills, but to empower them to as well to take risks at that moment so they can learn at the same time. I think, businesses as a whole, I spent a fair bit of time at HSBC before I joined Facebook, and failure was quite, and going through school as well, failure was like a scary word, and it was a negative, but actually developing ourselves and going through projects where things don't necessarily go right is where we learn and grow the next. But you've got to create a leadership environment that actually fosters that and that uses it as a learning environment. So bring young people into an environment it's conducive to them. People learn in a different way as well, like totally different way. So making sure that you are talking to that audience and understanding how they want to learn, what they want to learn, where their skills are, how you can help them develop their strengths, and then ultimately nurture that and empower them to to go in the direction that they want to go in. Because if you focus on people's strengths, that is when they'll thrive, and that is when you start seeing commercial the commercial benefit, and also that young person's role as a leader becomes really fulfilling and a party that they want to stay at.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on focusing on the strengths of young people. So Amir, I know you are a true expert in this field. You are a fountain of knowledge. So you've been executing global diversity programs with clear, measurable KPIs for quite some time now. So I'm just wondering, the audience, the businesses that are out there, could you share some of your best practices to see what is an effective workplace to support cultural diversity?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Dagmar, and really super insightful conversations with Molly and Montell. I also want to point out there's a difference between equality and there's a difference between equity, and we need to be very clear as an organization, what are we talking about when it comes to cultural diversity and having better representation in organizations. And like I said, I've done this many times, and we've talked about the business case, but there's two things. It's the right thing to do, and there's a business case. And I'm going to say this, and it may be a bit controversial, but in my 13 year career journey, and I've worked in many companies, you can imagine, no one has ever said to me, sell me why we need more men in the organization. Sell me a business case around why we need more men in senior leadership positions, or why is it important to have men in the company. So I always get a bit, not annoyed, but just, there's a business case in the 10 years out there. If you're not expecting a business case for men, why are you expecting a business case for women? The representation is there. We need to make sure we have the right level and making sure we do the right thing to make sure the diversity is there. And you can do a number of things, Dagmar, as you mentioned, the question you asked me, what can we do? Firstly, I think the biggest thing is look at everything. Do a baseline understanding of where you are. Look at your data. And not just the data. A lot of people get fixated on data. Data will tell you 50% of the story. The other thing is what people are saying, how they're feeling, right? What kind of conversations are they having? What kind of culture is there? I think Molly said it, the fear culture. Is there a fear culture? Because that's what data doesn't tell you. So you need to have the balance between those two. So understanding what people are saying and understanding the data is a good start to any kind of diversity strategy. Then I would say is D&I is often sits in HR, but diversity and inclusion is a business topic. Yeah, It's understanding how we can really integrate it in the business. Is it linked to our vision? Is it linked to our values? Is it linked to our marketing strategy, our campaigns, our HR, policies, our processes? Everything needs to be fully integrated rather than trying to do an additional add-on program or initiative when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So that's what I would say when it comes to best practice. And then also, I think the most important thing is, the 2 points. Focus on 2, diversity and inclusion. It's not and or, it's and. So do you have the right representation on all levels? And do you have the right culture that will foster that? And I think that's where we really need to talk about, because I always say it's like a revolving door. You can bring in people of color, but what are you bringing them into? And if they don't feel included, they will walk straight out the door. So you need to start tackling the things. And I will leave you with one last thing. I think the biggest change I've seen in organizations is the smallest of things. How are you conducting meetings? Who are you giving a voice to when it comes to speaking up at meetings? And this is introverts versus extroverts, could be anything really. And the micro inequities or the micro inclusions have such a big impact on a company culture that will then drive the diversity strategy. So inclusion is the road to diversity. Inclusion is the road to diversity. And it starts with the smaller things and helps a bigger impact when it comes to the cultural norms in a company.
Amir, you said for businesses to look at their stats in terms of to see where they're at with their diversity and inclusion. Would you mind sharing with the audience where you got your stats from that you mentioned at the beginning of the discussion?
The thing is, I'm a bit of a stats geek, right? So I'm happy to write these stats down and share it with a wider group if that helps. But I have been doing it for so long, I pick up on things. And when I deliver trainings around D&I in organizations, I normally have these as a first point of contact around a business case and why it's important to kind of set the foundation. So the stats, if you do want to know, McKinsey is the best place to go and look at data. If you go on the McKinsey website, all their reports are downloadable for free. So if you want to know the correlation between the business case and profitability and the diversity in executive teams, I say that would be a good starting point. Another one would be the Boston Consulting Group, because they do a lot of work around it. But there's so many, and I'm happy to share the stats that I reeled out earlier with the rest of the participants.
Yeah, fab. And I think what you were saying about diversity and inclusion, yes, it is. It is about making changes in the HR department, but it really is something which is a business topic because it does increase profitability. So thanks a lot for sharing that. Knowledge.
I'm going to mention one. Sorry, Dagmar, if I might mention one more thing. And I think, I'm sorry, I may have misheard your question, so I want to just add this. When it comes to stats in an organization, think about it on 3 folds. One is, what does your recruitment stats look like? Yeah. How are you hiring? How many people have shortlisted? How many gone through first interview secretary? Secondly is look at your HR data. What does your HR data tell you? Third thing I would say is look at your engagement data, because that doesn't tell you how many people they have. It tells you how they're feeling, how engaged they are in an organization. And lastly, think about what your customer insights look like. What are they telling you? How are they kind of talking about diversity from a consumer lens? Take all of that, and that will give you a really good, clear picture around your D&I statistics and data.
Thank you. Montell, if you could talk to us a little bit about your young person perspective, really, and how, in different work situations, how have you felt included, or how do you feel like companies could create a more inclusive office or workplace environment?
I do want to stay in this topic of people retaining their jobs. So I think that there's a lack of promotion that is going on in the BAME community. It's very evident. And again, we're getting invited to come to your party, but again, we're not liking the party, so we're choosing to leave. And it's a struggle. I spoke to someone about how their career path is looking like it's going to be. and I want you to listen carefully because this is it's slightly shocking. This person believes that they are going to work within a company for 2 years and they don't see themselves getting getting a promotion. So what they're going to do is they're going to, after the 2 years, cement themselves in that job role and move to another organization and try and apply for a higher job role. They don't see any promotion within the organization. They don't see any development within the organization. And this isn't just one person I've spoken to. This is many people I've spoken to. I've kind of got that kind of vibe, and it's scary. It's generally scary, very generally scary. So yeah, that's my opinion, and also opinion of others who I've spoken to for this whole week.
Montell, what do you feel like if young people are feeling like that from your community, what do you think the solutions could be that businesses, what type of strategies do you think that businesses could put in place to make sure that those promotions and that growth really happens?
So first of all, I think that I don't want to say give us a chance, because again, even saying that, why am I having to say to you, give us a chance? It's come to that. I'm saying to people, give us a chance, and literally, I can prove to you I can do the job, the same as that white person. And it's very sad, but I'm saying that. It's very, very sad. What I think what we can do to help with the promotions is, okay, let's first take a couple steps back and focus on the culture of the organization. Because firstly, this is my opinion, no one else is my opinion. I think the way an organization is kind of run is by the way the culture is, and by unwritten guideline rules, rules. And if we can start to create a space where discussion, like at least like every quarter of the year, actually more frequently, every month, where we can have talks about diversity, because there are some people that are there are a lot of managers that don't know how to talk about this, and you should not feel embarrassed at all. You shouldn't feel embarrassed at all. This is why we've got platforms like this. So we should start creating platforms where people can talk about this first, but more frequently, not every just quarter, or not diversity month, but every month we can have these conversations, and where we can start practicing it. Because what I feel like what we're doing as well, we're reading books, but we're not practicing what we're reading. What's the whole point of reading a book, but you're not practicing what you're reading? Do you know? Sorry, I'm sorry to go off to another road, but that question infuriates me, because I'm having to tell people, just give us a chance. And first of all, before giving us a chance, give us a platform where we can talk about diversity very frequently. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Amir, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that in terms of how you've helped develop and grow staff members.
Yeah, I really like what Montell said, actually, and it really resonates with me. And I would say this, it's saying, as a company, what do you want to focus on as an organization? Is it cultural diversity? What is the issue and challenge that you're facing? And is the culture, like Montell said, what is the culture that goes into it? And it won't happen accidentally, right? We've seen it, and it's been talked about for a number of years. Diversity doesn't happen accidentally. We are all diverse. And what we need to say as an organization is, strategically, where do you want to focus and put your resources and energy? And if that is getting young, diverse talent in an organization, then you have to think about how you do that and what you do that, and how are you going to measure your success, right? So, for example, having clear hiring targets. Who are you bringing in the organization? Having clear development target to say, when are we developing, does that automatically exclude a certain particular group of people? And making sure at all levels you have the right representation. That's strategic. That's making sure the company prioritizes it, signs off on it, and commits to clear numbers in terms of where they are and where they need to get to. And I think that will start changing things. There are a number of things you can do. Partnerships, right? Who do you partner with to make sure that you are even attracting the right talent? Where are you advertising? What does the adverts look like? Are you talking about a particular kind of person? Are you expecting someone to have 10, 15 years continuous experience? Again, those kind of little things that will have a big impact. Secondly, what your policies look like when it comes to flexible working, parental leave policies, both for men and women, right? There's a number of different things you can start doing to start getting more young talent in an organization. And it doesn't stop at company level. Think about it as who as an organization, which universities, college, schools are we supporting? How often do we go into those schools and say, I look like you, and I'm in Burberry. I look like we have diversity in our employees, and we want you to come and understand what Burberry is doing, but also we want to help you, give you the right skills and opportunities for you to have that experience and to have that. And like Montell said, it doesn't happen by just saying, please give me a chance. It happens by companies actively going out there, working in the communities, working in the schools, and making sure at that age, people can know that they have the opportunities. Like I said, you can't be what you can't see. And we need to go out there and say, Burberry stands for diversity, and we will be working with students, graduates, apprentices, interns to make sure we are continuing to have the pipeline in the organization.
Yeah, I love that quote of "you can't be what you can't see," Amir. That's a really great takeaway for our audience. I'm just going to move on to some Q&A from our attendees, and one of the first one that has come in, Molly, I'm going to direct this towards you, is that diversity and inclusion is something that this audience member is super passionate about, but they don't know how to become a champion within this space. Where do they start, and how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I touched on a few of the things earlier on in this discussion, and Amir has just cemented them as well. But, everybody is a champion of diversity. It's not just to be data focused. It's the culture day in, day out. So it's everything from how offices are set up from an accessibility standpoint to what your marketing looks like. And I mentioned the light work campaign that we created with the Prince's Trust and Liberty. Who are you working with? What suppliers are you working with? Who are you partnering with? Who's delivering that advertising for you? And crucially, where's that insight coming from? So as an individual, those are sorts of questions that you can be asking every day in a business. Like, are we representative of of the message that we're trying to deliver? And then on an individual and a personal level as well, there's a huge level of empathy that's required to understand different, everybody's different. We are all different and all unique. So having the empathy of understanding that, there's a number of great kind of courses and programs out there that people can look at around unconscious bias as well. I think unconscious bias is something that, it is unconscious. So you might have biases that you're not aware of. Like, I would encourage everybody to just have a look at, I think Harvard actually run a free unconscious bias course that people can have a look at. Give you, and again, it will be uncomfortable, but get uncomfortable, because I think we need to be out of our comfort zones if we're going to address this. And to do that, you need to learn something new about yourself before you can then impart that onto others.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about it. Let's get uncomfortable. Let's have these great conversations and influence people to make change. Amir, I've got a question for you from the audience, which is around the acronym BAME, which stands for Black, Asian, Minority and Ethnic. Do you feel that this is the correct phrasing internally and externally to use, or do you feel that it's this helps to tackle the issue or to create a wall between people?
Yeah, whoever asked that question, thank you for asking it. I like to answer these questions because my job isn't to tell whether it's correct or not. I'm going to give you some background information. So BAME came from the 1970s when the Race Relations Act came into place and the number of different activities that then happened from a legislation point of view. And often BAME was used, or the word black was used, from a political term or to describe a group that's not the majority or the majority of it. So you can take a majority ethnic group, whether that's white British or white American, and then look at what the minority looks like. So what I often say is, try not to focus too much on the acronym, because the acronym, just from a political or a historical point of view, was the way to describe a group when it comes to data. So how many BAME people do you have in the organization, how many ethnic minorities? And again, countries have a bit of a different way of looking at this. For example, BAME, US people have no idea what that means, right? So they use people of color or race. So again, I think it's more of a UK centric topic. But what I would say is, look behind that. What are we trying to say? What we are trying to say is, our population from an ethnic minority point of view is not reflected in organizations, and we need to start from what kind of inequalities minorities face. Call it BAME, call it people of color, call it race, but the reality is we need to tackle the problem and not get so fixated on the acronyms, and that's my view.
Yeah, that's really interesting. My friend actually did a boycott BAME campaign the other day, so I'm gonna tell her what your thoughts were on it. Hopefully she's listening. I don't know, Montell, as a young person, if you've got any thoughts on that, on the acronym of BAME.
Yeah, I basically use the term BAME only with the relating to like the work environment, and like Amir said, it's about what it's saying, and about the fact that there is a minority of Black and Asians within the work environment. Yeah, that's really what I want to say on it. Yeah.
Thank you. So another question that I've got coming in here is super interesting conversation. So how do we start increasing our applicant diversity? I'm going to open this up to the floor, so if anybody would like to take that.
Yeah, can I start off? I might want to be very, very quick. First of all, I feel like for the people that deal with recruitment, you have a responsibility. If you are dealing with employment through another agency, from a recruitment agency, it's your responsibility to start questioning that recruitment agency about the applications, about why is there 90% of white candidates you have bringing. Again, I do want to say that there are companies such as Creative Access, BAME Recruitment, and of course Princess Trust that do a great job when it comes to recruitment and bringing people from BAME. Also, if you want to start off, if you're looking to get into like young people like myself, another great website is Creative Access. If not, White Hat. White Hat has a great portfolio of literally bringing people from a BAME background into apprenticeships. And so I say this: we need to start questioning. If you are dealing with recruitment agencies, because I do know a lot of organizations do deal with recruitment agencies. Please start questioning them, please. That'll be all.
I would just add to that second on White Hat. We work with White Hat on apprenticeships and getting young people into Facebook to undertake apprenticeships, and they're a brilliant organisation. And also, get hired from the Princess Trust. I think sourcing is crucial. Like, where are you actually looking to source your talent from? Because that will reflect who you then get as candidates. Is the slate that you're hiring from diverse? And I've totally just lost my train of thought of what I was going to say to add to that point. So I'll hand over to Amir in case you've got something to add.
I think both of you covered it, but I would always say, if you think we need to attract more, create an attraction strategy. What I mean by that is, think about where you're sourcing from, as my colleague just mentioned. What partnerships do you have? Where are you advertising your role? What job boards? Look at your adverts. Talk to your agencies and talk about the importance of D&I and making sure that agency brings you the diverse pool inside. And last but not least, hiring managers, because often it's a hiring manager say, I want this type of person. So it's about competently challenging the hiring manager to say, D&I is really important. if it's about skills, I will get you the right person. But if it's about something else, then it's not really going to help us with the D&I agenda.
Could I just add one point to that? Was just also to say, it's about hiring, but you can't overlook the employability, because you're not just going to hire a young person and they're ready to go into role. There's a lot of skills that need developing. So think about the employability gap, the role that you're hiring for, and actually what are you putting in place to then help nurture that young person and develop their skills. And I think, again, there's so many organisations out there that help that, but the Marketing Academy Foundation, brilliant one. The Get Hired programme through the Prince's Trust has a number of facets to it. So it's not about just posting jobs on a jobs board. It's actually making that young person feel comfortable that they can apply for, and that then they're going to have the skills to do that role. So I think the employability gap should really be focused on as well.
Dagmar, I have a question for our panelists. And so with this question, let's just say example, a HR director has a certain amount of power. Am I correct? Have a certain amount of influence. Now, if someone from marketing doesn't really want to hire people from a BAME background, what should that HR director do? Because again, it's falling in their lap about the recruitment and about the the diversity stats. What should that HR director do?
Molly, do you want me to jump in here if you're comfortable for me to start, and then you can pick up on, or would you like to go first?
Yeah, you go for it. I'll jump in after you.
Cool, thanks. Montell, firstly, this is the first ever question I got from another panelist, so this is quite refreshing, so thank you for that. Look, the reality is not everyone is going to be sold on the D&I agenda. You're not going to get 100% engagement rate, and not everyone 100% are going to be champions. There's always going to be someone that's going to be a bit funny and think it's political correctness, or do we really need diversity? And I always say there's a mini-me syndrome, which is an unconscious bias way of saying we always hire people that look like us and behave like us. So it's a mini-me syndrome. Often what happens is the HR director, what can they say? And the normal conversation is, okay, we need to have diversity. Okay, that's tick box exercise. How the HR director can really position it is say, okay, tell me what you're looking for. What skills and experience are you looking for? And then it's a conversation more about the skills and experience rather than the person. They have to be a particular color, for example, or a particular gender, or have a disability, etc. So what would always coach leaders? I think there needs to be a coaching model rather than an activist model. And in organizations, if you get someone who's an activist or saying you have to do this like a teacher, you often go the opposite way, right? Like psychologically, you try to do the opposite to what someone is telling you to do. So I would say coach. And I think the HR director can say, there's a strategic priority. And if you're not on board, you're not really living the strategy that we as an organization are going to want to do. And D&I is a priority business one. Secondly, it's really coaching them to say, what you're telling me is you're looking for these skills and these experiences. And what that means is I will get you those skills and experiences, but you need to be open to the diversity that will come your way, right? And then it's all holding the hiring manager to account to make sure that hiring manager will have a good shortlist. Do they have 50-50 gender balance? Do they have a good representation on diverse cultural diversity? Because often statistics show if there's one woman in a candidate or candidacy of 5 candidates, the likeliness of her getting a job is 0 because she's seen as tokenistic. You just add a woman in there, etc. So it's having the right balance, and that's when the HR director can help with the right balance in order for the hiring manager to make that choice. So it's coaching and education, I think.
Yeah, the coaching and education, I think, going back to the stats that you were saying earlier about, it does increase profitability to have a more diverse and inclusive team. So thank you so much to our amazing, super amazing panelists. Thank you, Amir, thank you, Molly, and thank you, Montell. It's great to hear all of your thoughts on this subject. Super important matter at the moment. To learn why cultural diversity in the workplace is so important. So thanks, and thank you for all the great questions from our attendees. For me, really, my main takeaways, from Amir is that diversity and inclusion is a business topic. So think about how that does increase your profitability. And I think from Molly, it's about speaking to youth and creating campaigns that are led by youth. I think for Montell, it is don't feel embarrassed to have these conversations. Reach out to people within your company. Do reverse mentoring, get those young people in the boardroom, ask them what they think, and listen to them and really take on board what they're saying. So at the beginning, I was saying, let's just not only educate ourselves and open conversations, let's really turn what we've learned today into measurable actions within our companies, so we can help the next generation of young people. So if you feel inspired by today's talk, I definitely have. Young people, I got a bit emotional at the beginning talking about my story. So I'd really urge you, get as much support as possible. I was in a difficult situation and I reached out, and look how far it's got me, just reaching out to people. Don't feel scared, especially with the landscape of employment at the moment. Just reach out to as much free support as you can. The Prince's Trust is such a great place. And then freelancers, if you want to help young people with mentoring or join a course for your own self-development, reach out to us as well. And then businesses, if you're looking for solutions to meet new diverse talent, then look on the Prince's Trust website. We can help you with how that looks. And then anyone that's currently recruiting, please do check out our Get Hired website. We've just launched we're going to be launching face-to-face in Manchester before London. So, especially up north, if you've got any jobs, we've got jobs boards, so please, reach out to us. We really want to help these young people. And thank you so much. And really great conversation, and great to hear that so many people are passionate about it. So enjoy the weather and look out for the next webinar next month. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks everyone.